Victim 4, testifying using the pseudonym Mia, lays out for the jury what sounds like hell on earth working for Sean Combs. She says she endured years of threats and physical and sexual assaults. I look at her testimony, what went on in the courtroom, and the cross-examination with old social media posts coming back to haunt her. Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. The former assistant to Sean Combs, who testified using the name Mia, was on the stand for 2 days at the mogul's racketeering and sex trafficking trial. Mia testified about years of working nonstop for Combs, long hours, days at a time, first as his personal assistant, and later, she said she helped him start Revolt Films. In her time working for Sean Combs, Mia said he physically and sexually assaulted her and verbally abused her. Combs has pleaded not guilty to all of the federal charges he faces, and his spokespeople have said in the past that he has never trafficked or sexually assaulted anyone. Mia described for the jury her nervousness and excitement at getting the job working for Sean Combs after moving to New York. She'd had other personal assistant jobs, but this one was far more demanding. She told jurors she had worked for a fashion designer and comedian Mike Myers as a personal assistant. And when she started working for Sean Combs, she expected to work a lot, but maybe not as much as she did. Mia said she met with a recruiter and then went to Combs' apartment for an interview. She said he answered the door in his underwear and he was on the phone. Mia said Combs put some clothes on and she got the job. During her first 2 weeks on the job, she said she was on trial, a kind of probation. And her first day, she worked 24 hours straight. Mia said her roommates actually joked that they lived with a ghost. That's how little she was home. Now, Mia recalled a time that she worked for 5 days straight without sleep, taking her ADHD meds, Adderall, to stay awake. She said Sean Combs let her go to sleep when she finally broke down crying, hysterical. Mia's testimony began with a simple question about whether Sean Combs had assaulted her. Mia testified, "He has thrown things at me. He has thrown me against the wall. He has thrown me into a pool. He has thrown an ice bucket on my head. He has slammed my arm into a door. He has also sexually assaulted me." Prosecutor Madison Smizer asked, "Did Mr. Combs sexually assault you on one occasion or more than one occasion?" Mia responded, "More than one." Mia told the jury that Sean Combs sexually assaulted her at a penthouse at the Plaza Hotel where Combs was celebrating his 40th birthday. She recalled him giving her 2 vodka shots that hit her hard. She said Combs kissed her and put his hand up her dress. She said she woke up the next morning on a chair. Mia described other times that she says that Combs sexually assaulted her. She said she stayed at his house, and when she did, she was not allowed to lock her bedroom door. Mia said she awoke one time in 2009 or 2010 to Combs on top of her as she was sleeping on the bottom bunk. She said the assault was quick, and she felt she couldn't say no. There was another time Mia said she was packing Combs' bag, and he walked into the closet with his private parts exposed and forced her to perform oral sex. Mia said she didn't want any of these sexual encounters, and they always happened when Cassie wasn't around. And Mia said she never told anybody about these assaults. Mia said, "I was going to die with this. I didn't want anyone to know ever." Smizer asked, "What, if anything, were you worried would happen if you spoke up?" Mia said, "I would have been silenced. I would have been punished. I would have been exiled from my second family. I would have had a horrible reputation. I would have lost everything." Now to Cassie. Mia said she became friends with Cassie. They would spend a lot of time together, and it was actually part of her job to keep tabs on Cassie. Mia called Cassie Cece, and she also told the jury about setting up hotel rooms for Cassie and Combs. This was for the freak-offs, but Mia called them hotel nights, which would last anywhere from 1 night to 4 nights. And the rooms at the end were absolutely trash. She said they were a nightmare. Mia said, "I saw a lot of candle wax everywhere that was impossible to get out. There would be lots of wet towels everywhere. I've seen broken glass, water all over the floor, sometimes blood, oil all over, furniture and walls and things like that." Smizer asked, "You mentioned blood. What, if anything, did Mr. Combs tell you about the source of the blood?" Mia said that it was period blood. The world can be a really scary and unpredictable place, and that's where our partner and sponsor Morgan & Morgan comes in. They're a law firm with more than 1,000 lawyers because they win a lot. In the last few months alone, Morgan & Morgan has secured a $9.3 million verdict for a car crash victim in Florida, a $5.6 million verdict for another car accident victim in Atlanta, not to mention a $1.8 million verdict in Kentucky after the insurance company offered them a mere $5,000 in that case. Can you believe it? Even if you think your case is not worth millions, why not start a claim and fight for what you deserve? Morgan & Morgan makes it really easy. You can start a claim from your phone in just 8 clicks. So if you're ever hurt, you can easily start a claim at forthepeople.com/crimefix or click the link in the description and pinned in the comments. Mia also said there was one time in particular where Combs contacted Cassie about wanting to do a hotel night, and Cassie really didn't want to do it and got sick to her stomach. Mia said sometimes Combs acted like he was her best friend, and at other times he actually made her feel like a piece of crap. Now, Mia also told a story about she and Cassie sneaking out of a hotel room to go to a party at Prince's house in California. She said they weren't supposed to leave the hotel. Mia said Sean Combs showed up at the party and they ran once they saw him, and Combs chased them and he grabbed Cassie, but a member of Prince's security staff came over and pulled Combs off of Cassie. Mia corroborated the testimony of stylist Deontay Nash, who recalled Combs throwing Cassie into a wooden bed frame in a rage, leaving blood gushing from Cassie's head. Mia said she and Nash had actually jumped on Combs to stop him, and Combs threw Mia against a wall. He immediately snapped into this protector survivor mode. He told me to get Kayla, who was the assistant at the time who had relationships with the doctors. Get Kayla on the phone and tell her to call Dr. So-and-so and tell him that Cassie needs to see them immediately because she was drunk and fell and hit her head. Now, Mia was asked why she never reported any of this to police, specifically the sexual assaults. Mia said, I believed that Puff's authority was above the police. This was also a time period. This is years and years before social media, Me Too, or any sort of example where someone had stood up successfully to someone in power, such as him. Also, I was taught to believe that this fell under the confidentiality or loyalty of Puff's business. Now, Mia said one time she dropped Combs's name to police when she was pulled over, and she called him on the phone, and the officer said they loved him and let her go. Then Mia talked about a time when she was traveling to South Africa with Cassie, and Cassie found out that Combs was seeing victim number 3, a woman named Gina. Now, right now, the government cannot find Gina, so she's probably not going to testify in the trial. Mia said Cassie wouldn't take Combs's calls, and he was not happy. So enter Christina Coram, KK, Combs's former chief of staff. Mia said Coram wrote to her, I need to talk to her, not sure what to do. He needs you to call him now, or you don't have a job. Mia said Combs texted her that she better call him or he would tell Cassie everything and they would go to war. Mia said tell everything meant to tell Cassie about the sexual assaults. Mia said she told Christina Coram that she was having night fears and anxiety attacks. Mia said she was suspended without pay after this. And she left Revolt Films in 2017 after she was told the company was shutting down. And that confused her because she thought that the company had made money. Mia said she hired a lawyer to get back wages and bonuses. The lawyers wanted to get $10 million for her, but she ended up settling for $400,000. And after the lawyers got their share, she got $200,000. Now, after Cassie Ventura filed and settled her civil suit against Combs in November of 2023, Mia said that Combs actually reached out to her in 2024. He said that he needed his memory jogged on some things, and Mia said she didn't respond because she was terrified and knew it was a front. And Mia said she is still friends with Cassie to this day and spoke with her recently, but not about her testimony. Now, Mia said she no longer works, that she suffers from complex PTSD. Then it was time for cross-examination. Attorney Brian Steele asked Mia about her testimony and her saying what Combs did to her was the worst thing that had ever happened to her. She said that was true. Then he introduced social media posts from her personal account where she tagged Sean Combs. They were from July 4th, 2013. They were photos of Mia and Cassie. Steele asked, these were years after you said he raped you. And Mia said, yes, they were. Steele asked Mia about other posts where there were photos of her with Sean Combs and her claim that Combs forced her to take drugs at Burning Man. Steele also showed Mia a post in which it depicted Combs delivering her baby. Mia said it was a funny video and she was proud to be in it. Steele also questioned Mia about a social media post on the day she said Combs sexually assaulted her at that penthouse at the Plaza Hotel. He pointed to a post where Mia wrote, "Thank you for giving me an extended family for life. You're effing funny. I love you." Steele pointed out that Mia was wearing a tutu and standing next to Sean Combs, and he asked whether Combs was holding his private part in his hand, and Mia responded, "I guess so." Then Steele asked Mia about her being proud of Sean Combs, and she said she would, of course, post about the great times. He followed up by asking her about a post where she said, "Extended family for life. You are forever one of my great fans." And he questioned her writing that about a man who had traumatized her so badly. And Mia admitted that she wrote all of that. And Mark Agnifilo, the lead attorney for Sean Combs, he actually suggested during court that Mia was kind of faking all of this crying and being scared and things like that during her testimony. So I want to bring in Candace Kelly. She is a journalist and legal analyst. She's known Sean Combs for a very long time, covered him for many, many years, and she was in the courtroom for the cross-examination. I want to talk to you first about this claim by Mark Agnifilo, Candace. Pretty interesting stuff. They basically told the judge in the courtroom outside the presence of the jury that they thought Mia was acting when she was on the stand on Thursday talking about all of these violent encounters and sexual assaults.
Yeah, I think one of the things that became apparent is that, first of all, she obviously didn't want anybody to know her name. She's using a pseudonym. And we know that when she came into court, she was really covering herself with her hair and her jacket. She definitely didn't want to be known. So I think the question becomes, were the effects, because I did hear some effects on her voice, were they because she didn't want anybody to know her? Or was it because she was actually lying about her disposition and who she actually was? And I think that it could be argued either way. The bottom line is that he definitely went to town to her on cross, making the point that, what you're saying is not really true. It's not feeling like it's true. He tried to make many arguments to the judge about a video that he wanted to get in. And there was a lot of contention. And I think that he made his point that he thought that something was off. But, I'm not sure exactly how the jury was feeling about it. I did get a sense by looking at a few jurors that they might have some questions, but, leaving that to deliberations.
Yeah, I find it interesting they picked Brian Steele to cross-examine this witness because it sounds like he's being pretty aggressive. He's bringing out all of these old social media posts where she's, talking about, she's speaking in great terms about him. Not that you would go on social media and diss your boss and say bad things about your boss, but these were positive things. And he's trotting out each one of these. Did you say this? Did you say that? And she's saying, yeah, I said it. So Brian Steele, famously represented Young Thug down in Atlanta. We saw what happened with that case, but, we're not seeing it, Candace. You were in the courtroom. We unfortunately can't see it, but you saw it. So how aggressive was Brian Steele at going at Mia?
At first, it was a very gingerly approach, but then very, very aggressive. He was saying things like, so really, you're celebrating the anniversary of your rape, that type of thing, because the one of the assaults happened on Sean Combs' birthday, which celebrated every year. There she is celebrating. So he phrased it as if, every year you were happy on his birthday. We can see that you were happy. In fact, you were celebrating the assault. So it was just a very strange line of questioning that I'm not sure set too well with jurors. It certainly didn't sit well with a lot of people in the gallery. But he was relentless. He was not going to let it stop, that he believed that, hey, you're faking it. You're faking it. In fact, here you are in a celebratory way online. But I think another thing to take away from that is that, like you said, what is social media? Who is going to post something negative about their boss? Who is going to post these days something negative about their life in general? Right? That's why some people call it Insta scam. It's not real. It's just whatever you want your life to be in that moment. So a lot of different ways that you could go there, but he was very aggressive.
It's interesting you call it that you spring up, people call it insta scam, because that's the problem with social media. People are projecting an image on social media. You're not really getting a real look at somebody's life behind the scenes. It's not pulling back the curtain, if you will. So, I mean, Brian Steele straight up accused her and asked her, "Aren't you lying about these sexual assaults?" He straight up did that, and she said, "No, everything I've said in here is true." And he's like, "But didn't you? It didn't happen as many times as you said," and things of that nature. She maintains everything she has said is true. She was basically in an abusive relationship. I mean, she said, "I'm a people pleaser. I'm always wanting to do the right thing and please people." And she's like, "Talk to my therapist." She's basically saying, a therapist could explain this to you. So yeah, I mean, she's kind of like trying to walk him through the dynamics of how an abusive relationship, even with your boss, works. And I'm wondering, do you think the jurors, like when you look at the jurors, do you see them as thinking like, do you see any scowls or you see any like, oh yeah, like head nods? I mean, how do you think they're reacting to this?
I had a good view of the jury today. There were a couple of times where two jurors in particular did give a scowl, like, all right, I'm taking this in, but I'm not sure what I believe yet. To me, it was clear on their face. The other ones, they were more poker faced, but there certainly were a couple that you could see it on their face that they were trying to process this. Is she lying or not? What are we looking at? Are we looking at a representation of herself, or is this who she really is? I did not get a sense that there were 12 jurors that were all in on this. And I said to myself, I think what's going to be a part of what goes on in deliberations is that someone, especially a younger person, is going to have to explain to some of the older people on the jury how social media really works and how it's represented, and that sometimes when you post a picture, it's just not who you are. That's what I thought about immediately. They're losing some folks, but they're going to be talking about that for sure in deliberations.
How was Mia reacting to Brian Steele versus how she was on direct? I mean, was there to you a clear difference?
Oh, there definitely was. First of all, she was much more comfortable than she was yesterday. She just seemed more open, if you will, and more comfortable until she got to cross. And she really listened when she was reading the emails, for example. I'm sorry, the text that she would with someone else and who was a part of Bad Boy. She read them with fervor. Hey, how are you doing? She really kind of acted it out because she likes to use exclamation points, for example. So she definitely seemed much more comfortable because, again, she was acting it out and giving her reading of text a lot of energy. She was very comfortable until Brian Steele. And there were many times where he asked questions where she had to say, can you repeat that? Because that's not the sentiment that I'm really trying to express with said picture. Or that's not the sentiment that I'm trying to express with said text. So there was a lot of that. All right, let me process that. And can you repeat it? Because that's not what I'm saying. So there was a lot of that going on. She definitely got more uncomfortable.
It's very interesting to me because the government wanted her off the stand, Candace, by today, or at least that was their plan, because they have to fly people in, fly people out. Mia is going to be back on the stand on Monday. Court has been adjourned for the weekend. She is still under cross-examination. People had a feeling this might happen. What is your reaction to that?
I have a feeling that the defense is ready to break her down even further. I saw them making headway on her disposition that seemed much more confident. And I assure you that over the weekend, there is going to be a major attack of a plan that's going to be devised. And that's what you do when you are a good attorney and you go to somebody's memory and you show that they may, be a bad character or have a history or might have some bias in some way. They are doing their job. And I think that this gives them more time to dig it home even more. Because that video that you made reference to earlier, they were going to show that this depicted her as someone who was, jolly and happy and dancing. that video did not get through so far, but I think that they're going to continue to fight for other pieces of evidence to come in so that on Monday they can go hard and they can go strong to break down her will and break down her confidence.
You know, it was interesting. They said that somebody just sent them that video, that they got it pretty, late in the game. I think 1 a.m. or something like that. And they said, this shows her acting differently, et cetera. The judge said, no, you can't have it in. Now they have an entire weekend to prepare even more. He's got an army of lawyers. And how is Sean Combs? Like when we see the sketches, he does not look happy. He looks like he's kind of like not happy looking at Mia. So what are you seeing and gleaning from the guy that you've covered for a really long time and that you kind of knew from college?
Yeah, well, the thing is, even when you're not testifying, which he probably won't, my goodness, but that's a whole nother topic. Even when he's not.
Oh, they said he would, though. They said he would, but it does open him up to a whole lot.
It does. It opens up. But even when his mouth is shut, he's still testifying, as you said, by his demeanor. How is he looking? How is he acting? I would say, when this trial first started and his hair was longer, he seemed more disheveled and had this disposition of, I'm down and out. I will say over the past few days since he's gotten that haircut, he's definitely more spry. He definitely is more interactive with the audience. He definitely has a disposition where it seems like he feels like he's winning. I don't know if it's all psychological, but it certainly is something that's presenting itself a lot better than the first week during jury selection. He definitely has a better attitude. And here's the truth. His defense team is amazing on those objections, much more aggressive than the prosecution. The prosecution could do more objections, in my opinion, but his team is doing well for the facts that they are given. And I'm sure that might give him some boost. I'm also sure that he has reached over and leaned over to his attorneys and said, hey, this is not who she is. She is lying. This is not how she acts. I don't know what this is. There had to have been a conversation for him to take his attorneys there so that they could argue she's acting. The whole thing is an act. So he was feeling good. He was feeling good today. That's what I saw.
That's very interesting that you think he's feeling good. I mean, this is a guy who knows how to put on a PR campaign. I mean, let's face facts. He does. I mean, he didn't get to where he is by not knowing what he's doing. But it's interesting to me that you think he's feeling good. What would be her motivation to say all this stuff? And it makes me wonder if they're kind of thinking to themselves, she's making all this stuff up about the sexual assault. Is that their position? Or is it like, yeah, they may have had sex, but it was consensual?
I think it's a couple of things. I think one main thing is a juror could read it as her just trying to protect her identity and who she is. In other words, no, she's not going to be jovial on the stand. She doesn't even, her voice sounded like it was slightly altered. Her disposition, she definitely doesn't sit crouched all the time. She certainly doesn't wear her hair that way all the time. It's in her face. That's impossible. So I think, either the jury will see that as acting or the jury will see that as her trying to protect her identity. Now, the defense is always going to open the door and say, you're lying, you're lying, you're lying.
Sure.
But she had a lot of texts. She had corroborated many, many stories. And I think you can only go so far to say that somebody is lying because she's corroborated and has been in line with every other witness that has been on the stand for the prosecution. So that would be an impossible feat, but certainly something that the defense should try to do because that is their job.
It definitely is their job. And now they have an entire weekend to prepare and rein it in and hone their, cross-examination to do more prep. Candace Kelly, it's been great talking with you. Thank you so much.
Sure thing. Good seeing you.
And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.